Hey guys, T-Bull here. Today I'm going to kind of release what I would consider to be part 2 of my How to Aim the Main Gun Beginner's Guide. The difference between this one and that one is this one's geared towards the ×2 aim is what I call it, a little bit more aimed in. That's how I normally aim now, and I believe most players do. So the numbers in the first guide are kind of geared towards the most zoomed out, and then this is the second thing past that. So if you haven't seen that video, I think this one's going to be kind of confusing. I would definitely recommend watching that first. That kind of lays down the foundation of my aiming system. But this one has new updated numbers and formulas. So what is the difference? The old one, the distance was, you want to use the seconds to target. Okay, that's the left-hand number in the center. You'll see every time you aim in. But the old one, the hash marks were being lined up where you want the shots to land. Now I'm always aiming, with the exceptions I'll point out, I'm always using the hash marks towards the front of the ship. So either which direction it's pointing at. If it's going forward, the tip of the bow. If it's going backwards, the tip of the stern. And then my multipliers are battleships 1, cruisers 2, destroyers 3. So basically, because this is zoomed in, the calculations are different, alright? But if that doesn't make sense, what I just explained, I think you probably aren't familiar with my first video. If you are familiar with it and it doesn't make sense, so I'm going to spend the rest of this video talking about every shot I take and try and illustrate it. So again, we're aiming always at the front of the ship, and then the seconds multiplier, 1 for battleship, 2 for cruiser, 3 for destroyer. Right off the bat, here's the destroyer. Time to seconds just shy of 2, so we're going to go about 5 in. Alright, now it's an inexact science too, keep in mind. This guy's not going full speed. These numbers are always depending on broadside, full broadside targets and full speed targets. So again, it's 2 right there. We're aiming, just a little bit in because he slowed down. So that's right there. I'm aiming at 6, which is 2 times 3. But now they're going towards the front of the ship, so I'm moving it back in. Alright. Now this destroyer example isn't the most illustrative one that I can use right off the bat, but of course it's the first ship we got involved in. Furuotaka, ×2 on cruisers, assuming full broadside, full speed. That's roughly what he's doing here, so we're going to multiply that by 4. Now, again, I'm not always aiming it exactly at where I'm saying I was, but this is the main idea, alright? And then we're pumping citadels in. Now this Kuma, obviously he looks to me like he's going slower, so I'm going to multiply that number by 1 just to test it out. So we've got a 6 hash lead on it, and drop it right about where I'm trying to aim. So we're just going to keep shooting that same shot until he changes position or heading or whatever. So now he's angling in at about 45 degrees, and then it looks to me like he's basically stopping. So to test that, I'm going to just shoot right at the tip of the bow to see where those land. That's kind of a test shot. And because the shots roughly land where I aim them just slightly, then I know he's essentially stopped. So now he looks like he's creeping forward a little bit, so we're just going to keep moving forward. And again, if you're confused, I'm always the left-hand number in the middle of the screen when you're aimed down the sight. So right there is 10. He's out of range though. And now there'll be a couple times in this video I tried to zoom in and out so you could see. I think I missed the first one, but it's a confusing topic. Again, aiming, when you get good at it, it's mostly feel, but this is the starting point of how I sight in my targets, and I feel like my aim's pretty good, so this is how I use it. If you're interested in adopting the system, fine. If it doesn't work for you, or if you got a different system that works, then I'd recommend sticking with whatever works for you. So then we're just multiplying by about 3. So we had about 7. We were trying to shoot about 21. Now he's angling outwards a little bit, so that forces you to draw it inwards. It becomes very complicated shooting destroyers that are moving around like that, but essentially that's where I wanted him to land. It looked like he just turned right at the last second, and again I was timesing that roughly 6 by 3, so we were aiming at 18 hash marks. Only the 5, the 10, and the 15 are visible on the screen, so for 18, I have to aim at that outer left hash mark and then add in what the equivalent of 3 would be. If it was 20, I have to imagine the 4th hash mark being there that isn't there. If it's 25, you have to imagine the 5th hash mark and so forth. So there's a lot of feel to it, but sighting in the distance, that's how I do it. It works for me. I think it works pretty well. But I'll leave it up for you to decide. And again, if you have an aiming system that you feel you're pretty accurate with, I wouldn't necessarily recommend tinkering with that. You know, because the way I was taught the game was the system that I put in the first aim guide. All right, so there's a destroyer times 3, which would be 9. Now we're dividing that in half. Anytime something's at 45-degree angle like that, you're going to divide it by half. So we had 9 divided by half. It was about a 4.5, which is basically what I shot, and we hit him dead center. So now we're looking at this Alba. Again, I'm sighting in his speed. He looks like he's nearly stopped me, so I'm just shooting at the front of the ship. They're landing roughly where I'm aiming them, which is confirming my suspicion. I'm guessing he's going about a quarter speed, or he was going full speed forward. Now he slammed on the brakes, and now he's actually reversing. So I'm just going to shoot that one dead center at the superstructure. Kuma, why not take a shot at him? He's just barely backing up. Just going to shoot right in front of him. Just give him a little tap just to let him know we're thinking about him. Alba, now it looks to me like he's probably backing up at this point. It's tough to tell because he's on fire. You can't see his smokes. Kuma's moving forward now. Once he hits full speed, we'll do 2 times, but he's not quite there yet, so we're just going to scale it a little bit. Now he's full speed, so we're going to multiply that 5 by 2, which is just over 10. And we're dropping those shots right where we want them to go. Again, Alba's barely backing up, so we're just going to shoot right at the edge of his back side. And that should land where he continues to back up. Now Congo, battleships, we're multiplying that number by 1. And then again, he's at a 45-degree angle, so we're halving it. So I'm shooting at about 2.5, you'll notice. And then the height, I'm just trying to hit the superstructure, so good way to get some fires and damage that way. Again, we're just over 5, so we're 2.5, 3, somewhere in that range. And you always kind of want to see where your shots drop too, because each battleship doesn't go the exact same speed. So there's certain battleships that are faster than others. Japanese ones tend to be faster than American ones, for instance. So the more experience you get against each ship, the more it'll just kind of incorporate in the feel of your shots. But again, these are the starting places I'm looking at. So now he's nearly broadside, so I'm just going to go to about a 6, which is what he's a 1 times 5.8. Now he's angling back in a little bit, so we're going to scale it back in. Just to reiterate, these numbers are for flat broadside targets. Anytime they angle in, you're going to need to scale in accordingly. And again, that comes down to feel. I don't really have a mathematical formula for that, and I wouldn't care to be doing any complicated math beyond times 2 or divided by 2 is about as much as I can handle. So Congo, he's basically pointing at me now. When battleships are pointed at me, I just like to shoot at the tip of the bow, basically, and usually they drop in right up around at the superstructure there. So that's the shot we're attempting there. Now we're kiting away, and we'll just keep opening and closing it again. I can't tell if he's going full speed or not, but again, if he is, we're taking 6 divided by half because of that 45-degree angle, just shooting about 3. Now he's opening back up, so we're going to go to about the full 6, 6.5. Again, this is to the front of the ship, not to where you want the shells to land. That reflects the fact that we're zoomed in times 2 compared to the other system, which is more geared towards a fully aimed out. And then the reason I'm aiming at the front of the ship now instead of where I want him to land, it just simplifies the math quite a bit. Because if you remember the old system, like cruisers were 1.5 as the multiplier, and then dividing that by half, you know, it just got too complicated. So I just kept playing with it and I worked it out, and this works well for me. 1 times battleships, 2 times cruisers, 3 times destroyers. that's my rule of thumb. I swear by it. I'm not going to change this aiming system probably ever again unless someone convinces me of something that's vastly superior. But I mean, in my mind, I mean, this is as accurate as you really should be. So we've killed everything on this side. I wasn't expecting to catch anything else, but the teammates of mine killed the cruiser, and then we actually caught up to the destroyers. So you'll see a very long-range destroyer shot. Now this first one, I wasn't sure if he was going full speed. Normally destroyers are going full speed, so you should just assume so. But for some reason it looked weird to me, so I just kind of launched a diagonal shot at him to sight in his speed. Got a feel for how fast he's going. Once I determine he's full speed and then he goes broadside, we're going to ×3. So about 8 × 3, we're shooting, you know, between 21 and 24 there is my goal. And again, we're imagining that 20th hash mark. Now we were just a little bit behind. We actually almost missed that completely on the right-hand side, but we did catch him in the prop, which sunk him. So that's the proof of how the system works. In my mind, it's pretty good. And if you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. There's a lot more World of Warships coming all the time. Questions about that, please leave them below on here or in Discord. I want to help you guys out as much as possible with this aiming, so I'll try and get back to you. And we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.